Hello student, today we will do biodiversity and conservation part 5. This is the fifth video of biodiversity and conservation. If you have not watched my previous video, do watch video 1, 2, 3 and 4 of biodiversity and conservation. So topic covered in this video are biodiversity conservation and how to conserve biodiversity. These topics are for class 12 and these notes are for according to NCERT for students of class 12. So let's get started. So why should we conserve biodiversity? What are the reasons that we should conserve the biodiversity? Now the reasons to conserve biodiversity are grouped into three main reasons. So there are three main reasons to conserve biodiversity. Number one is narrow utilitarian. Number two is broad utilitarian. And number third is ethical utilitarian. So according to the NCERT, there are three main reasons to conserve biodiversity: narrow, broad, and ethical. So what we should remember under narrow utilitarian? We have to remember human derives a number of direct economic benefits from nature, like food, fiber, industrial products like dyes and perfumes. So we derive a number of direct economic benefits from nature, that is from ecosystem. So we should conserve the ecosystem. We should conserve the biodiversity since we derive a number of economic benefits from the biodiversity like food, fiber, and industrial products. Number two is broad utilitarian. Under broad utilitarian, we have to cover 2 points. Number one, biodiversity provide many ecosystem services like adding oxygen to the atmosphere and pollination of plants for fruit and seed formation. So because of biodiversity, the oxygen is added to the atmosphere and we get oxygen. And second, pollination of plants is also done with the help of biodiversity, like the wind component of biodiversity or the insects present in the biodiversity. They help in pollination. So biodiversity, it provides services like adding oxygen to the atmosphere and pollination of plant for fruit and seeds. Second, aesthetic pleasure of watching spring flower or listening to song of a bulbul. Now, the aesthetic, the seeing pleasure of watching spring flower or listening a song of bulbul is also provided by biodiversity. So under broad utilitarian, we have to cover 2 points. Number one, biodiversity, it provides oxygen to the atmosphere and it helps in pollination of plant and thus giving us fruit and seeds. And number two, aesthetic pleasure of watching spring flower or listening to the song of bulbul is also provided by biodiversity. Number third comes the ethical utilitarian. Under ethical utilitarian, we have to say that every species has an intrinsic value. So every species of nature, it has a value. It is our moral duty to take care for the well-being and pass on the biological legacy in good condition to the next generation. Since every species has its own value, its own intrinsic value, so it is a duty to take care of the well-being of every species and to pass this biological legacy to the next generation. So this is the ethical utilitarian. This is the ethical utilitarian. So we should conserve the biodiversity. So there are three main reasons to conserve biodiversity: narrow utilitarian, broad utilitarian, and ethical utilitarian. Now, according to this, the question asked is, in the question time, why is there a need to conserve biodiversity? So there is a need to conserve biodiversity due to main three reasons given in the NCERT. Number one, narrow utilitarian, broad utilitarian, and ethical utilitarian. In the narrow utilitarian, we get direct economic benefits from the ecosystem. In broad utilitarian, the ecosystem adds oxygen to the atmosphere, and secondly, it helps in pollination, and second, the aesthetic pleasure which we derive from the ecosystem. And under ethical utilitarian, every species has its intrinsic value, so it is our moral duty to take care of their well-being. So you can pause the video and write the notes that why should we conserve biodiversity. Now the second question asks is why should we conserve biodiversity? So again you have to write all these 3 points. I hope you would have understood why we should conserve the biodiversity. Now the next part of biodiversity will be continued in the next video. If you like this video, subscribe now to my channel, that is Ramji Chopra. Thank you.